I can have your attention, please. We'll go ahead and get started. It's 9:30 and we do have a quorum.
You realize.
So we'll proceed with the Personnel Committee meeting for the Washington County Board of Supervisors for June 13th, 2024. The first thing on the agenda is the call to order, which you just did. Accept the minutes from the May 9th, 2024. Do we have a motion? Moved by Dave, a second by Daryl. Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Staffing, move on to
Okay,
Danielle.
so we have our straight backfill request. First for the county clerk is a motor vehicle license clerk vacated on June 7th due to a resignation. In the district attorney's office, we had a legal assistant who's actually vacating tomorrow due to a resignation. Social services, we had an account clerk who vacated that position but returned to a clerk position instead, which leaves that position vacant. They also had a caseworker part-time vacate on June 7th due to resignation. A caseworker full-time vacated on June 5th due to a resignation. And a clerk vacated on May 31st due to a resignation.
Okay, does anyone have any questions, Danielle, regarding the backfill requests?
Staff load obviously has increased, so. Are we having concerns about casework management? Do all these resignations?
I think there is, but they're all doing a lot more down there, so, but again, it's constant, I think, down there for that, so they're doing their best to keep up with that.
It seems like when you get one filled there, then there's another vacancy that's created something else.
Yeah, I totally understand the attrition problem.
Yes.
That was short-lived.
Morning Supervisor Campbell.
He's thankful I'm here now. Dave can move on.
Yeah, my only concern is.
One more.
workload. So. And I don't know if there's anything we can do. At this point. To help.
The help program includes the caseworker, so it gets them in quicker, and appointed quicker. So really, they just need to meet the minimum qualifications to allow them to hire them. So that's definitely faster now. So they are getting people in and out a little bit quicker, which I think is helpful. Still, the training for the new people, you know, it takes a while. So I think people they're gonna have to pick up that work, you know, until people get trained, so.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, if there's no other questions, we'll move on to the staffing pattern entitled by grade attempt salary schedule.
So, assigned council, this was moved from public safety. They're requesting to add one new title to the staffing pattern and the non-union title by grade schedule. It would be an intake clerk, which is a part-time position at a grade 12, which is $22.44 an hour.
And this was moved from the public safety. So do we have a motion to
Move to finance?
finance?
Yes.
Yep. The finance, but Daryl, do we have a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, Dean's got the discussion.
Forgot to turn my phone. Let me get that off then.
That's okay.
Turn it off.
That was memory of your first car.
I'm just trying to understand this. It says you're gonna request to add one new position, right, to the staffing pattern? And intake clerk. Why do we need a new position? What's changed to add?
I was gonna bring this up after the discussion, but this is part of a grant that he was awarded. So the grant that he was awarded, Mr. Campbell can expound on it if he feels like it. But it includes this intake clerk, and then we're gonna be contracting also the social worker as part of this grant budget process. So this position is tied to a grant he received for 3 years.
So there shouldn't be any cost to us if the grant actually works the way it's supposed
3
to,
years.
but I hate that. Sorry.
Well, and that's lovely.
That's where I'm at.
Why, if we don't need them, we're gonna hire somebody because we got them free? I mean, if we don't need them, why, there's no explanation for the need. If you had that and had the grant coupled with it, I'm all for it, but.
The rationale for the grant is supposed to be to keep people out of family court on child neglect proceedings. Which in theory would make my life easier, but I think it's gonna make my life a lot harder.
Okay, so now it's sad, you're saying,
Well,
put on
It,
this for-
it's part of the continuing pattern of New York State wanting to give everybody everything as soon as possible. The rationale is the social worker and the intake clerk will funnel people that come into the cabaret and criminal charges and get them hooked up with services, because a lot of times they may be drug addicted or have some mental health issues. And if they have kids, try to put services in place so that if there is a current child protective investigation, they can get to a point where they're not getting court ordered to come into court and obtain those services. That's the rationale behind it. I'm not saying it's going to work in theory or in practice. That's the rationale.
The overarching goal is to be proactive instead of reactive and decrease dockets at the courts and recidivism. So that's if it works, those two things will happen.
Well, that's what I want to be, is proactive.
That's what this is, this is to get in front
No,
of the.
3 years from now, nobody will remember this discussion of mine, and I won't be here. So what are we gonna do?
I've already had a year of it already.
Well, that's
So-
what I'm saying, you know,
Because of the way the state's run, this may work, I don't know, but they've changed their mind from assisting people to make them better and more accountable to enabling them to be useless. And that's what I don't like. And I don't know how we're gonna fix that if the state's demanding it.
Dan, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the question you're asking is how do we ensure that 3 years from now, there's documentation that demonstrates where this position came from, and what it's tied to? So that if the grant money goes away, the position goes away.
Luckily, I have a.
well, you say that, but how do you write that up? That the position goes away 3 years
I
from now?
won't soon forget. I'm here for 4 years.
It'll be on the top of my list when you see budget time this year.
So what if we were to do this? Okay, we have finance meeting following here. We refer to finance, have the department head come over and explain. And then we can explain our concerns and why we aren't gonna approve it.
And one
Does it work or no?
comment.
We've been through this rodeo so many times already.
I haven't unloaded all my comments here. How do you prove that it works? Because if it works, 3 years from now, we're gonna keep the position, we're gonna spend the money and raise taxes ourselves to do it. How do you know if it works? I'm being antagonistic.
The treasurer, no, you're not.
Treasurer
Treasurer.
first.
I'm not gonna answer his question, but I'm gonna maybe answer yours. I think that one of the things I could recommend to the committee is to tie the position to the grant so that it sunsets at the expiration of the grant. It will force you to review the position and will
Right.
automatically recur. So you
Right,
could,
because
you could put that.
Once the money goes away, the position goes away unless we
Right,
want.
so you could tie that to the position so that you have to deal with it at the end of the grant.
Right.
That way, nobody has short-term memory.
That makes the most
And then back
sense.
to Dan's other point, what metric is being used?
And I think Tom Choppy would be best to answer that question and also to provide the metrics for years. And
So-
maybe Dan himself would be able, sorry,
No, go ahead, I can make
and Dan himself would probably be able to weigh in on his office. My gut tells me his office may be impacted as much as any other. So you'll know fairly certain the impact on Dan's office.
So,
So this intake clerk will be responsible for putting out referrals to a law guardian, to a, to a.
It is.
health
My understanding is to get referrals for mental health or substance abuse and other potential services that may help this person hopefully stay out of family court.
Or there's assumed to be underlying.
That they- for things.
I'm sorry,
So this new person could potentially do the referrals for these people, for families coming in.
It'll be a highly clerical position, a lot of paperwork. Yes. I think the contracted social worker will have a much higher level of authority and responsibility. This would just be the person that does the actual daily boots on the ground clerical paperwork stuff.
So it's not necessarily calling up the phone saying, I have a referral for a school program.
Probably not. That's probably more the social worker's job. My gut tells me that will be the case.
Melissa has some input.
So I believe the contract has already been signed. If the
Yeah.
approval was already given for the chairman to sign it, correct?
Yes.
Just fill
So
in.
now we're just asking to create and fill the positions that contract is outlining.
Yes.
And I really believe, like Al said, we have to tie it to when the money goes away, we have to look at it. If we think it's really working and want it and want to pay for it, that's one thing.
Right.
But if it absolutely is a disaster like it looks like, we certainly don't want to be involved.
And if it is a success, we would reapply and hopefully be
If
renewed.
it's a success, we probably would be behind.
So are we going to request from the department head some kind of matrix so we can trace it? I mean, I don't know how else you would do it.
Yeah, I think it's worth
I think
having a
that's-
plan in place to measure the success.
And they actually believe that and say that even Harrell Herring, if it goes away, they want to cut people.
Yes.
So they're on board with it. We just have to make sure we follow through.
Right. And I think the metric is recidivism, right? So, I mean,
And the actual amount that makes it to the docket. I mean, you want to, in theory, reduce the amount that even get to court.
it could be a simple metric, and we just have to start tracking the
And like I said,
data.
one of the best litmus tests is sitting right next to you.
Yeah,
But we've increased the data 100 times with all these programs together. And that's how their metrics is, we're gonna figure it out by how much paperwork proves all this out. When all the same things were getting done for the most part with none of that work. So now you need 10 times as many people to make it happen.
And the trick is, all of you are aware, it's sometimes hard to prove what didn't happen.
Right.
That's where you get stuck, right?
there are,
I've seen it. It's just,
assumption starts with what?
you and me.
So the contract has already been signed.
Authorized and accepted, authorized and signed.
So then we need to move forward with this. So
To move the person, okay. Yeah, correct.
and move sunset into it. Okay.
Or look at it in 3 years.
Yes.
Do that, like on the staffing pattern, I think Sue can,
So there's no
you
motion.
know, review.
Is that what you're saying? You don't need to,
We know the end date on it.
No, we still have to add the position in order to make the contract we sign work.
Go through finance.
There's another contract.
So that could be
We could put
in
that
the
right up
staffing
staffing.
pattern.
That's the sad truth.
So did we have, I forgot, did we have?
Yeah, we had a motion.
We had a
and a
motion.
Motion in a
A
second.
second. All right. So for clarification. Who knows what the motion is supposed to read?
Motion was to move the finance.
Right, to move the finance, we're still gonna, that's all we wanna do, and we'll just hear some finance, is that?
Yeah, and then,
Is that what you wanna do?
or do we want to add the
create-
Or
part,
do you wanna add those now? Just create-
or
just
that
like-
we agree with the position until the money's gone and it sunsets, we should move that to finance.
And that could be your recommendation to finance.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion for that?
So
We
amended.
have amended motion with Giuliano, and we amended that one. Have we got a second on that? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed?
yeah,
Yeah,
opposed.
carried.
Now the motion as a whole.
The motion as a whole to move the finance.
Okay, move the finance, got a second.
Dan seconded that. That was
That's the one he
original
seconded, okay? So, is there any discussion on that one? See-
What's this one now? Is this another?
No, it's the initial one to move it to finance.
I don't think we'll find.
Okay. So,
motion. So you're withdrawing your second discussion?
I'll leave the second out there. I did it for discussion. So.
okay, gotcha. So, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Hey,
Carried.
I just said you don't need a motion for discussion. I wanted to discuss it, but once the motion's on the floor, I can't discuss it till you get a second, right? I just said you can help.
It's on the agenda, you can always discuss it.
Right.
It's always open.
I thought once the motion was on the floor, there's no more discussion till the second, or the motion's gone.
And motion's gone, you can still discuss it, you can discuss it.
You're right, but I didn't want to destroy his motion. I'm polite, even if I am. Even if I'm cynical, I'm gonna be.
You're sitting in the right way today.
Okay, now, this moves us to the sheriff.
Yeah, the next item was moved from public safety. It was to amend the non-union title by grade schedule to establish the pay rates for the special patrol officers for the school districts. We are missing Salem School. They're still,
It's in the resolution, we got it.
oh, okay. So do you know the number and then we could add that?
You know, we're also missing the full rate of the member. The unassigned guys.
That's not
right.
July one though. The rate would stay the same for the county. wouldn't it?
Why would we have another?
I haven't heard anything about that.
They should all.
The rate is the same to wherever they went.
Right.
If I remember right.
Right, that's.
So the schedule doesn't change for the
Yeah,
school.
right.
They'll get paid wherever they get sent.
Right,
What is it?
so,
2807.
It's in the finance back.
Because he's got authorization to use two people to other things. And
we're
at a certain rate.
at the rate that the contract states. For if they go to the school, they get paid at the school rate, so wherever they go, they get.
What you're saying, they go elsewhere besides the school, is that what you're saying?
Then you just get an increase in the
That's
pool
different.
to serve people.
So that,
Those
there's
are
two
the-
different things. There's
Right.
a substitute SPO that substitutes at the schools, and his rate is whatever school he's. working
Whatever
at.
school he goes to, he gets
Right.
paid the rate at that
And
school.
then the newer request was for the SPO to substitute,
Here,
like
right?
here,
Right.
yes, yeah.
Where
And
that
then
rate
they get
is
the
the
rate
same.
here.
And what's the rate here? We have our own rate
We have our own
between
rate.
here and
And
jail?
that
Yes.
rate is rated.
It's
Yes.
the
Not
deputy
county.
part-time rate, it's the deputy
Yeah.
sheriff.
You're the right church,
Okay.
just wrong.
Confusing.
Yes, I remember that discussion now.
So you have some.
It's in the finance back.
It wasn't our rate.
But the new,
Same as the
four
park.
that are hired to come here will have a hard
With
time
finance.
filling in our guy.
All of the ones on your document were, it was
Chairman?
missing Salem at 2807, so.
I just wanted to point out that not only is our guy the lowest paid on here, but in those proceedings I have in my office, the very first thing they did in 1929 was to hire a deputy sheriff to slow our gal for $150 a year, payable in 12 increments. So you guys have been cramping on our gal for the past 100
So it
years.
goes in alphabetical order, so Whitehall would be the highest, it makes sense.
That could be, yeah.
And what did you do with all that money?
All right. So we need a motion to move the
I
finance.
moved it, Jay seconded it, we're good to go.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. That moves us to other.
Okay, we have two handbook changes, possible handbook changes. They are attached to your information, your agenda. The first one is the meal reimbursement. So the top part will be the current handbook and below is the proposed handbook change, which is highlighted. So we're just asking that we move forward with the highlighted information.
Move it. Second. Is there any discussion?
Is that the other part that we're
Yes.
working on? And that covers all that discussion on all three of those?
Just,
Yeah.
we're on
Or
part
just
one,
we're with the
we're on the
Just the
first
meal.
one.
meal reimbursement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Second to read it again.
Yeah, I remember this discussion.
Any discussion or? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. So this takes us up to the second portion of the rate. That's the meal reimbursement.
For the rates for the meal reimbursement.
Is this what they go to the full order is it done? Is this actually?
This stops here. For
This is
handbook
the
change.
handbook
I want to make sure they
changes, not
understand
going
this
to the
isn't
full
going
board.
wide.
Right, and this does significantly increase the amount of the meal reimbursement.
Your
Double
approval
it.
today
Yes.
makes it
Yep.
so.
Well, be fair.
Cost of food stuff.
Yes.
Stop and get yourself a breakfast sandwich. And a cup
Right.
of coffee.
Not gonna do it for $7.
No, not even close.
Okay. So now we're on to the second motion of the,
Dan,
sorry.
did we have an issue with one unit that's 50 cents difference?
I was gonna bring that up later.
Discuss later.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're on to the section 719, nursing mothers.
So this change, the proposed revision to the handbook is per the labor law, 206-C, which is effective on June 19th. It was to provide paid break time for 30 minutes. And the person would be using their existing paid time also in excess of the 30 minutes. So if they wanted to do it during lunch, they could get an hour paid. So this change is due to the labor law, so wanted to make the handbook reflect that.
So moved.
Harold, do you have a second?
Repeat that again, since I don't have to second it, ask the question.
Yeah, it's for nursing mothers, so if they have to, you know. do
But the
their-
extra hour is part I'm trying to understand. I understand the nursing mother part, but it's the time frame that I'm trying to understand.
Well,
3
they
years?
get a 30-minute lunch,
Yes,
so they can increase that time to do
an
their
hour?
nursing to an hour if they'd like, and they would be paid for that additional 30 minutes.
and now it just, that's it for the day, or is it, there's more than one break for a nursing mother?
It's as,
How does that work?
so there's a schedule out there that's
You can't watch.
recommended, but
I know.
it's open for, this is my understanding based on my other job. Nursing mothers need to nurse or do it at home whenever they need to. And, but there is some boundaries to it, but it's more flexible to the mother than it is to the employee, the employer, I should say. So,
Okay, with that being said, back to you, Danielle. How many breaks do they get a day?
2 15s and then their lunch.
Okay, and so with this, they get another half hour for lunch.
And
Anything
it
else?
doesn't have to be during their lunchtime, they
It can
can
be
just extend, it can be a 30 minutes.
But that's it for the
anytime
whole day?
during the
They get an extra half hour break? Wow,
For up to 3 years.
3 years?
Both sides.
Wow. Well. Interesting.
and you have to give them a comfortable place to do this.
Yeah. Anybody wants a tour, the vacation room?
Have a motion?
Yes, I,
Your wish motion. I think we're gonna have a second because they just wanted to discuss it. We have a second. Brian, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right, that moves us down to the, move from public.
I really want to.
Question over
finish
6
on that. Decided it was.
So the last thing was moved from Public Works. It was a request to roll over 60 hours of vacation time for Mike Rial. This was moved from Public Works.
I missed that conversation.
What was the
rationale?
He was sick and couldn't use time. Is that
Yeah,
what-
that's right.
Yeah.
Hold it.
Second.
Brian, second, Carol. Yeah,
Discussion?
discussion.
Have we ever denied anybody?
Yes.
We have, okay, good.
You just felt like denying somebody and wanted to do it today?
Well, no, I mean, if we never
Let him be
deny,
first.
if we never deny anybody, then we should change this to, so it doesn't tie up our community. If
I
we
think
never-
you want some kind of. control
Right, you gotta-
over the rollover.
It's gotta fit within the year for the most part.
And you've given them a lot of leeway as far as carryover, so the personnel officer and myself can approve up to 5 days to be carried over, but I think you want some control
Yeah.
over if it's excessive amounts.
Because it'll get excessive if you don't.
I think.
I think it's excessive now. So, I mean, we're still good to go.
Anybody time off.
See, I can be cynical on that. The nursing mothers, I can't be.
All right. So we have a motion. Daryl's got the motion. Do we have a second? Yeah. Brian's got the second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Carried. That's it. And this now moves us over. This will be adjourned. Stand adjourned. Personnel committee meeting and it moves out of finance. Good luck, Brian.
Yeah. Oh, the meeting before that. Okay, I need to accept the minutes of the May 9th meeting. Moved by Dan, second by Mr. Fisher. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay, Caroline,
Hi.
welcome.
How are
So
you?
the dome project and the IDA, and this is a nuance we're not used to, and you get to explain all that. So thanks, Lily, you're here.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. My name is Caroline. I'm from Morris. I represent the
You want to share?
Warren Washington ID, because everyone they want to be my back people.
Well, we want you on the screen.
Oh, great.
In what capacity? Legal?
Yeah,
Legal
I
capacity,
represent the IDA. So the IDA has received and has approved contingently on county approvals, a project for the Dome project in Queensbury. And the Dome is going under new ownership, and there's going to be improvements made to the Dome and the outdoor facilities, improvements to the inside, and expansion of parking. Because this project under the law is considered a retail project because people primarily visit there for a good or service, and that's how the law defines retail. The IDA is only allowed to incentivize those projects if an exception is met. And those exceptions are a tourist destination, or if it provides a good or service that's not otherwise readily available to the community, or if it's in an economic zone but doesn't meet the tourist destination, or it doesn't meet the economic zone qualifications. So where we are is where this provides a good service that's not readily available to the people of the community. If the Dome were not there, the closest location, I believe, is Malta, and then south thereafter. So the law, General Municipal Law, Section 862, requires us to get the consent of both counties as to our finding that this is a good or service that would not otherwise be available if the Dome was no longer in Queensbury. And so that is the approval we are seeking for purposes of benefits that the IDA is offering. They're offering a sales tax exemption on the improvements only, a mortgage tax exemption on their financing, which is only a portion of their mortgage, because the other portion of their financing is through an SBA loan, which is already tax exempt. And then they are, they've requested a deviation from this traditional pilot process or program. So they've been approved for an enhanced pilot, which is a flat rate for taxes over the term of 15 years. So it's a predetermined amount as opposed to an exemption on improvements. The town of Queensbury was required to approve that enhanced pilot. They did approve that. We went to Warren County committee, and Warren County committee approved and referred to full board, and their meeting is the same day as your full board meeting. So that's where we are, and that's why I'm here this morning.
School district also, or?
School district did not formally approve. The school district was consulted. They met with the applicant. They did not raise any issues with the town, and when the town approved it, they took into consideration the school's position.
Okay. So it is resolution A in our packet. So we need a motion to go forward.
All right, I will move that motion based on the fact that I know that there are literally hundreds of children, young youth in Washington County, and adults as well that utilize the facility over here. And here is actually right, there's not, there's other ones is in Malta and places south for all the different events. And this is from toddler age all the way on up to adults. So I think it's one of those things we need to support.
I'll second that based on the rationale for the exemption.
Any discussion?
I just want, Dan, you concur with everything she said?
I do.
Okay.
We got the lawyers degree, we're good.
I have a question that may not be, relevant to the conversation, but do we know annually what the economic impact the Dome has on the local?
Chuck Barton.
Chuck Barton, CEO, yeah, we do. They did an economic analysis that showed the impact is 40 to 1. And that was actually a 50% conservative cut from their economic analysis. So it clearly shows the area benefits because they looked at introducing tournaments, they looked at non-local visitors, hotel stays, they did a full economic analysis. So it's clearly Exactly. Clearly have high economic.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Thank you. Good job.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Good luck.
Now, does this go to the full board?
Yes, yeah, they authorize the chairman to sign the consent.
So treasurer, you're up next.
Good morning, everyone. The back gonna be brief, but the conversation after might not be. Your sales tax sheet that you have in front of you. Unfortunately, about 13 minutes after this thing went to print and copy, a deposit came in. So you don't have on there this morning's deposit, which was $350,000, $214.40. So it's down $1,700, which still brings us to $260,000 over the same time last year. So it was a little bit red this morning, but not drastic. So, and that happens this time of year because they do a lot of estimates until the final through. So nothing that overly concerning. Had that number been triple digits, I may have worried a little bit more, but a minor $1,700 adjustment is not a big deal. The cash balances, the only thing that I want to note for you on there is both the general fund and capital construction. You'll see capital construction has 3.2 and general has 4.1. 3 million in capital construction and 2 million in general fund respectively. After this had gone to print, were transferred into the investment account. So 5 million of those monies are invested in the investment account. ICS total down below is now 65 rather than 60, and that cash on hand is a little bit smaller, earning some better money.
Thank you. I was gonna mention that, it's like, because I do the same thing, is minimals.
I sweep it as soon as I can, but sometimes this is gonna print before. Budget the actuals, thankfully, we're trending right where we should be and not much different than last year, which is good news. We'll have some significant impacts in the general fund once we get the 3 years of auction that are in the rafters waiting to pull the trigger on. We had originally thought it was gonna be July. I can tell you, based on the postings and the court's timeline, we're probably more realistically into August. So there will be an auction, but it will not be in July. It's almost impossible to guarantee that with all the new legal wranglings we have to go through and it's getting on the court's docket sometimes. And that can't even be done until Dan's office drafts all the requests for summary judgment. And the request for summary judgment can't be done until 30 days after the postings. And there was like 50 postings this year. And we have one sheriff deputy that executes those. So the timeline is the timeline. We'll move forward to the best of our ability. But we'll be clearing 3 years of taxes off our books, good, bad, or ugly.
Yeah, I just got a question at night class.
Yes, sir.
I just see there's one that has like 51 cents here, has 18 cents. Is that,
So
how does it?
So when we pulled out the money out of night class, for the amount of days that transpired before I did that, they had literally like 2 days of the month.
Gotcha.
Why they haven't just closed the account and sent me the money, I don't know. I think they're still hoping that I'll transfer money back in. But until such time as the rates are the other way around, the money will stay where.
I assume that wasn't a day or two of it, just it come after they close it. or
It keeps
whatever.
it open and easy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I mean, should night classes rate significantly change? Or even non-significantly, I would have the ability to freely reinvest those money.
Right, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
We will continue to try to maximize the cash on hand that we have. Which brings me to the first discussion. Last month, when I presented the financials to you, it was kind of a lightly attended finance meeting. And one of the things I didn't do then that I want to do today is we have a fund balance policy, right? That says our general fund, we'd like to keep minimum funding at 20% of our operational budget. What you did for me and the budget officer in 2022, well, in 2023 from the 2022 financials, was to take the surplus money and reinvest that into the capital plan. I'm gonna ask you for some level of that consideration again this year. So what I put in the packet was the page in the fund balance policy that I'm referring to that requires 20% of the unassigned fund balance. And then I'm giving you my trial balance that I run, that I think is the easiest to read. It shows that our 2024 appropriations are 110 million. 20% of that will be 22 million. And on the very, very back, you'll see that the unassigned fund balance is at 26. We require 22. There's basically just under 4.2 eligible for discussion. What I would be respectfully asking you to consider is $1 million for the capital plan. And I would really like $2 million for the health insurance. So I don't want to take the whole 4, but I would respectfully ask for you to consider 3. With $1 million going to the capital plan and $2 million going to the health insurance. If we don't do something on the health insurance, even with the 50% increase, I'm gonna be coming back to you in 2 months and telling you, we have to, not we want to. So if you're not comfortable with the 2 million, I'm open to discussion, but that's my recommendation.
So I think if we can afford to do that, then obviously we got the money sitting there and and you know it's gonna be an issue possibly down the road, we should head that up if we can do it and do it at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
I would make a motion to move that.
1 million to capital, and 2 million out.
Yeah, I'll second that as described by our treasurer.
So we have 4 million.
Or 2-ish. That we could consider
You
and
know,
still be within our policy.
right, so we're doing 2 to there and 1 to the other. What were you gonna roll the other million into the?
We'll
Just leave it
wait and
He
see
may need
how
it.
the year goes.
Yep.
Alright. 'Cause I was just looking at our capital costs and how stupid everything is starting to go as far as getting anything done. Anytime we can build in that capital fund.
And I do appreciate what you've already done, but we're still a long way from
It's,
funded.
and it's really nice to have that million there because of the ARPA rules and the way things fall in place. There may be things that we have ARPA that don't fit, that we have to change, and then things we planned on doing, we may need that extra million to make them happen.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of things in play here, but I really thank the board for the way we've handled that ARPA money. And we just didn't do handouts. We took care of the constituents across the board and our everyday stuff and kept from pulling their taxes out of the water. I mean, it's been a very important, the way we've done it as much as how we've spent it. So appreciate that.
So as, you know, hedging it as a contingency, right? So $1 million on contingency. So we kind of figure things out.
Yes,
What do we think? You know, when we get to the end of the tunnel. Where would we, let's just say we get, well, I'll call it lucky. Fortunate. And that $1 million reserve for uncertainty is still there. What do we think would be, where to best use that? Well,
so the largest project in our 5-year capital plan that won't even put a dent in is this campus.
yeah,
So the 3rd highway barn that's in need of repair, replacement, whatever we're gonna do is the Fort Edward barn, the one on this campus. And that becomes part of a much larger conversation about tearing building down, building buildings up. So, I think you're probably, and I'm shooting from the hip, Supervisor, you're 10 to 20 million on this campus project. So anything that you can do, I mean, I'm not living in a fairy tale where we won't be borrowing some amount of money, but when we can offset some of that with actual cash, I welcome it.
And remember the fund balance is actually there for dire times too. So according to how the whole year plays out, that may get absorbed and we don't even have it. Or there might be a few thousand next year or $1 million next year. We just don't know at this point. So I think keeping in the spirit of the way it's supposed to work, what we're doing makes sense.
I know we made the motion, but based on, did you think we should split a different way, Jay? Did you think-
No, I was just asking Al
Okay.
how he wanted
Got
it broke out and that million's still floating there, so it can float to that capital. at the
Well,
end
and
of the year.
suppose next year
that's
that,
what I was going.
so suppose next year it comes in and you're at the level you don't have to go find it to meet the policy, it's still sitting there.
Yeah, gotcha.
So that helps too.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I just didn't know if Jay had a different idea. of how it was
And
split.
when you're trying to fund the 2025 budget, it may give you some breathing room as well. So.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries.
Thank you, Supervisor. Last thing for me is, Ben's got a separate handout, I believe, on the other. We can use the- Yes.
Got plenty in the stack from
So this is separate from your packet, so that we can kind of discuss, you know, that you're comfortable with this before we actually. Because if we have to tweak some of these numbers after the discussion, we can do that. So the ARPA committee met and had to have a painful realization that with the final rule that they passed, I think in September of last year, it requires us to have our funds obligated by 12/31/24. Now they have actually defined what obligated means. It doesn't mean I can just say, this is what I want to use it for. We actually have to have it, we have to actually be contracted with somebody. That's how they've determined the definition of obligated. You have to actually have an ink contract with somebody or the money out the door. Those are obligated funds. So it turns out that we will not be able to meet that threshold on the $3.5 million of broadband money that was in the original recommendation and plan. The sheet in your hand is what our new recommendations are in lieu of that broadband plan. One of them is keeping a little over $500,000 from the broadband plan, leaving it in that line. And what our goal would be to contract with a third party to administrate a homeowner grant program whereby they would be able to get, so if you have somebody that nobody's ever gonna run fiber to your house, there might be somebody in this room. And they may want to sign up with somebody like Starlink or some kind of other provider. There's like a $500 cost to the equipment and all that setup fees. We will be looking to help those homeowners with that fee so that at least they at least have broadband and we've reimbursed them for that out-of-pocket cost. So we can still do some good broadband things with some of that broadband money. We can still get people connected that just don't have the ability to afford that out-of-pocket equipment cost.
So would your intent be that would be written specifically, so it would just talk specifically about broadband?
Yes, sir.
And it would-
It would be specific to equipment purchases for the purpose of broadband connection.
And having that $500,000 committed into that program, that's meets the element.
Once I contract with a third party, I am committed.
I think the title of it, homeowner rehab
No,
program.
that on the sheet.
Okay.
This is the 3 million being removed from the 3.5.
That's done under the decrease.
So in the budget impact statement, you'll see
I
that
got it.
verbiage.
I see it now.
Because it's already in the line, it doesn't need to be
Yep.
moved.
Okay.
All right, so we're only moving 3 million of it. We're leaving 580, whatever it is, in the
Gotcha.
line for this program.
Okay.
Supervisor Clary, I think was next.
So I think most of the question is answered by Daryl's, question for me.
Okay.
But in the meantime, are you gonna take on this responsibility for sending checks for 500 to potential?
We're gonna contract with a third party. We have 2 people that are willing to do that. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got several questions, and I know Laura presented this, and I was present when she did, but I seem to be a little hazy on this. How do you contract with a third person, and what are you contracting? Number one, for that $500,000.
So we would contract with a third party to administrate the homeowner grant program for broadband.
Now, when you say a third party, are you talking a private entity?
It could be like the regional planning board, it could be Pride Ticonderoga, it would be a group like that.
Oh,
Who already has knowledge of this area.
and now who is eligible to apply? Anybody that
Washington
doesn't,
County homeowner.
anybody that
Unserved.
Unserved,
unserved right now,
we know who they are in theory.
And that 500,000 would cover all the unserved, Laura?
Well,
It
not all
doesn't
the,
seem like,
not all the unserved would want this solution. This is for people who only want a non-fiber solution.
well, how about the ones that want a fiber solution but aren't
They're
gonna
gonna
get?
have to wait for the
They're
state
gonna have to wait
grant,
for the
see if
state.
it works out.
Well, what if the state drops it all? What if they run out of money? I mean, are we going to
not-
then forget
Yeah.
everybody else?
We don't have the money to fund what's necessary to connect the whole 1,300 or whatever the number
If the
is.
state can't fund it, we can't fund it.
It's a huge number. Mr.
But
Shaw.
no, I know that's a huge number, but if everybody went with Starlink, that 1,300, that 3.5 million is enough. That's the point I'm going with. You're throwing people right off the list if the state fails,
So,
right? Am I looking at that wrong or am I looking at that wrong?
Can't believe you don't have faith in the state.
Well, I'm just, and there's a lot in my town and I'm sure there's a lot in every town. So we're taking 3 million out. We're gonna keep 500,000 for the people that aren't eligible, but not deal with the people that don't have it, that might never be able to have it because the state isn't gonna follow through with all that other money. I'm just saying we're being a little unfair about this, aren't we? You're confused, Dan, so what am I saying wrong?
I was waiting to see if Dave was gonna clear
Clear it up, Dave.
first of all, we have 1,200 now that we know don't have fiber going by their house.
How many?
About 1,200, isn't that?
Okay,
1,200, Laura?
So it's about
By
600,000.
our record, yeah, so there's actually an additional 500 that will be getting licensed fixed wireless. We actually just got confirmation from USDA that they're gonna get the contract shortly. So there's another 500 sitting out there that are gonna get licensed fixed wireless. Once that is solved, we have around 1,200 who don't have access to any of it.
And this is about 600,000, it's 587,000. So we think we're covering the bulk of everybody.
To finish that up, we also don't know how many of those that are unserved that may have another solution, such as already having Starlink or having some other solution they're comfortable with, making MiFi or whatever they call them. We don't know that. We also know that Starlink costs $500 about for installation equipment.
It's $500 to $600 equipment only. Installation is running $4 to $5, depending on where you watch them.
so now we're up to
This program
1,000.
Could
is
self,
just talking about the equipment.
could self-install.
You can.
You could
So initially, there are people who may not be able to afford the Starlink monthly fee, which I looked up last night, was $120 a month. So maybe people want to go with their own solutions or whatever they have using already, so we know what those are, so it's a gamble, but.
We're pretty close on the numbers to get everybody covered. We don't think there's gonna be many out there.
The goal of the committee was to at least try to help.
Right. We're trying to get everybody covered.
Well, I guess logically, if 500,000 is close, but most likely isn't enough, why would we pull it right down to 500,000? Why don't you leave it a little
587.
extra,
We did, we left it at 587,
600,000?
almost 600,000.
And
Very
that
close.
definitely will, no matter worst case scenario, that's gonna cover us.
We're hoping
On the equipment.
on the equipment. Yes.
Because, and that's all you're gonna provide the
1,200
people
times.
is $500 regardless of what.
It's at least gonna get us a lot farther than the state was gonna get us. It's gonna, do the best we can. If we stick a whole bunch of money in there, and
And it
then
goes,
our grants don't meet that, we give that money back to the state, which I also don't want to do.
But don't we have to 2026 with the state?
right, but if you've already set the parameters at the end of this year and then it doesn't work out,
After December,
the
I
money
can't-
goes back,
I
because
can't
you've already,
change
right, after December, you can't change. We're trying to meet all the
If you
parameters.
commit 3 million and spend 1, you're gonna give back 2 million.
That's the concern. Jay,
Two questions if we're done with the internet talk. What's the home rehab program?
So I'll go down the list for you if you want. I just want to make sure we're done with this one.
Okay, cause I'm not up on my
So
lettered one, so I didn't know what
the intent-
KRMS was.
So the homeowner rehab program, the intention there is to expound upon what Pride and the other group,
Rebuild
Something
Saratoga.
Saratoga.
what is it?
Rebuild Saratoga.
Rebuild Saratoga, so that we have like a northern and southern kind of representation. And this is to expand on the, the kind of the weatherization program, for lack of a better term. So each of those groups will get $250,000 for Washington County residents to improve windows, doors, insulation, that kind of, just like the old HUD weatherization programs would have done through like Home Front or something like that. So that would be the intention of that. Again, contracted with 2 third parties by the end of the year, and then have till 2026 to make those.
Is that income based?
yes, I believe so.
It's what we tell it is.
They have to qualify, and
That's part of
there's a
it.
number of things that those two organizations do to determine if a family or residence qualifies for that assistance.
I'm not sure that the money we provide has the same strings.
It depends, so for the weatherization, if it's, or the, depends on what program it is. Each program has its own unique parameters by which they evaluate whether or not those people that apply qualify. So that's all part of the process.
Laura's got it.
So I think we have yet to do the fine tuning of how this is going to work, but the general intent is that both Rebuild Saratoga and Pride of Ticonderoga are administering state fund program. Like home and CDBG funding. So the general intent is that we follow the guidelines of the regulations of those programs. There's some things like we had to consult a Indian tribe in Omaha to remove an oil tank out of the ground in Argyle. I'm not sure that we would need to do all of that, but I think the general intent is to follow the program guidelines for the existing programs that both of those entities are already administering.
Do they take a cut or is the
They get an
full,
administration.
how,
10%.
what percentage? Huh? 10%. So 900,000 will go to the, oh,
50,000.
50,000.
yeah, oh, I'm right. We're back up on the homeowner. I was already down this barn repair. I'm waiting to see what that percentage is.
Done. The next one on the list is barn repairs and replacement. It's to fully fund the Fort Ann and Middle Falls barns so that we have no money
The county side.
for either barn.
Oh, this
This-
is the
this the
old
county-
cow barn and
Now,
on the side hill.
now.
This will give us enough, ARPA money to pay for both
This
of
is
our.
for the
current-
solar array over for, or,
What's the lending rate right now roughly?
I think you're probably gonna be lucky to get something in it, 4.5.
We're making money.
And I'm only guessing. So
We're making money doing that.
anytime we can pay cash, I'm gonna be a very happy man. So
especially because of what the future holds. You're not gonna wanna have big borrowing out there.
Shed RMS replacement. One of the reasons this has been important is I think this has been a discussion since I've been treasurer. The system we've had now has been a handful for those involved with it. As many of you who've been here for years are aware, there's significant issues with our CAD system down at the 911 center. It was $1 million, $1.5 million back when we looked at it 5-6 years ago. So they've started looking at some vendors. There is a vendor right now that looks like it might be a viable solution. And they have 2 options for us. There's a higher purchase price with a lower recurring annual fee that we host. And then there's a lower option purchase, but a higher recurring annual fee that's hosted in the cloud, which provides its own disaster recovery. And once we get down the road, IT and public safety will come back to you with their recommendations on the vendor, which solution they're recommending. But based on the quotes that we have, this is the dollar amount that we think will get the project done. Based on the current quotes that IT and the sheriff and dispatch have currently. They'll come back to you with the actual plan.
And I was just gonna say, this in essence has the availability to shut down our entire emergency systems to the county. So that they're functioning properly.
And I think
We certainly
anybody
don't
like
need that. That would be-
Supervisor O'Brien, who's been intimately involved in it, will tell you that something needs to be done.
Yep, exactly.
And it, by being in the cloud, you can set up shop as long as you can get a connection, so it will change, it'll change everything.
And I am not disputing the fact that that's necessary. My question is, every year, Tim and Glenn come with awards for big grant awards for the 911 system. Is this something that's eligible for a grant?
We've never been able to get there, so I would say no. We've always tried to get there.
So it must be eligible to apply. We just haven't received a grant for it,
Well,
right?
the big grant that you see from them is their PSAPA grant, which
Right.
have been doing all the tower work and the simulcast work and all that. That's what's paying for that.
The backbone.
So now when they shoot out, it's not shooting off one tower, it's shooting off all towers. So the redundancy is a huge thing for public safety. That's where those big dollars are going, Mr. Shaw, to that project.
Well, I knew that, but I'm just saying,
Well-
is this one
And
eligible?
it's a legitimate question for them.
It could be eligible, but then how do you make up the ongoing cost of that system also? Because we would have to pay for that if we weren't using the grant money for that.
Oh, that I'm not disputing. It's just that I don't want to be spending this money on
Oh, I
something that's eligible for a
You're
grant.
absolutely right, I agree with that.
Even if, if it took a year longer, would we have another place that wouldn't ever be eligible for grant, but would qualify for ARPA money?
All the
That's
time
all I
I've been
do.
here, it's never worked out. We've tried every time.
Well, that's the interesting wild card from my perspective is, do we have another year? Do we have another 2 years?
Oh,
Yeah.
right, because it's that bad.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
And it takes a year and a half to get it implemented, once we even get there.
We had this system which worked well for a while. Now, we're still having issues with the system and not getting the feedback from the company, because this isn't their main product anymore.
And it's been sold, right? The
It's
company's
been
been sold.
sold, and they have their own product, which they haven't even bothered to try and sell us. But after seeing a lot of calls and hearing a lot of emails of what the issues are, we need to do something quickly.
the,
And quickly is a year and a half to 2 years.
the resident expert who physically went into the programming and was able to do that, retired and sold off the company. Now we're relying on people that are not close to the community that are, so it's not very good.
We've had issues out there for 6 to 8 months, since we started that on their schedule to fix this.
I think Supervisor Rozelle's been trained. on
Well,
it.
yeah, I want to interject some realism, so I want Mr. Roselle to speak.
That's, do we have any idea? I think it's a follow-up. How long this money's gonna last? Is that enough money to do the job?
That's what we're hoping, that it does a complete job to redo.
And then we got a payment every year after
There
that?
will be.
That's the way everything with software is now.
And what does this money do? Are we still gonna have this ARPA funding to pay for it, or are we gonna come up with that, or?
We already pay a certain amount yearly now in different pockets to do it. So it will be an increase, but it will be along the same format as we already do. It'll just be on their equipment instead of us having to replace our equipment. If it's in the cloud, if we go that route, it would be in the cloud. The payment would be bigger, but we wouldn't have to keep renewing all our servers. So that's the opportunity we have, but I need more information to know where that's headed
I guess
to.
the way I look at it is, this is a project we know we have to do. I'd much rather spend the federal money than mine. I guess that's the way I look at it. Either whether we use ARPA money or not, this project has to happen. It's not a recommendation anymore. This program has to be replaced.
Yeah.
I guess my point is, Do we have enough to do this, or is this enough to get us halfway and we gotta? fill
This
in
will do the
other
whole
half?
project, but the recurring software licenses upkeep.
We think it's gonna get us we think it'll get us a program in 2 years. Right.
So I haven't seen the preliminary pricing. This would take care of the first year and potentially pre-buy some maintenance for a year and a half with that extra money for $1 million. So we haven't got the final pricing yet. We're supposed to be having, hopefully we'll have it by next week. So we can look at it, and make a decision, but.
Is there other companies, or we're stuck with only one company?
No, they're quoting on multiple companies.
They've
It's
been
not there
reviewing,
yet.
they've been reviewing companies for years.
And the difference between our current reoccurring costs and what the new program is gonna be, we don't know yet. So I guess it all depends on the option you pick.
Or in vendor.
So did that suffice in everybody's explanation on the different things, and we need a motion to move this?
Get one more.
You
It's county infrastructure upgrades. So we left that purposely vague, but the intention of those monies, because again, the timeline matters, right? So we have to be able to go to contract. I know, government ops, if you were here for government ops, Matt had the unfortunate task of dropping on us the cost of the upgrades that we need to do over, or going to accommodate the public. I understand all of the state's asks, but there's a price tag to them. And again, so this is an attempt to help offset some of those costs. I think he gave us a dollar amount that's maybe double this, but this helps, right? And this is provided he can go to contract by December. If Matt comes to us and says, I can't go to contract by December, it allows us to take care of some other deferred maintenance items in this building or any other. So this gives us the freedom to be fluid should we not be able to use the money if we're going. Does that make sense?
This is the contract by December.
Guy?
Hey, we used to call that, unfinanced requirements, so we had them.
I need a motion to move this.
Chairman, yeah, I think that due diligence has been done by the committee that put this together, and I think we need to move it forward as it's proposed. I'll make that motion.
Moved by Sam Hall, second by. So, did you have another question there? Were you?
Well, I was just, Dave said they've been working on that CAD replacement program for over a year and a half now. How,
Since we got the old one.
how fortunate we are that we lost $3 million worth of high-speed internet service programs. And instantly, what was gonna happen to that CAD program if we didn't lose our funding?
That would have become a taxpayer.
Fund balance.
It would have been fund balance, right?
One or the other. Either way, it's taxpayer expense. That's why I think the board, for the decision we made, we're not going out and doing hodgepodge things, we're doing necessities that we're gonna have the expense of eventually anyway, and that, I think that's important.
Using one-time money for one-time projects is absolutely.
Oh.
I thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're on to budget amendments. So resolution B, IT computer equipment. It's refunded prior years. Moved by Daryl, second by Jay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
C is the Sheriff for Law Enforcement Technology Grant, recognize that.
With that.
Second by Daryl, second by Sam, any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. D, Sheriff, for furniture for new investigator's office. Motion. By Tim, second by Daryl, discussion.
What are you getting for 6,000?
Chair.
Two.
Chairs.
Actually, Mr. Half would be proud of you because this is actually taking it from a 2 to a 4, which means it came in less than $500.
It's expensive.
It's less expensive.
Wow, that's expensive, Chair.
But my question stands. What are we getting for 6,000 besides a chair or 2 chairs? Coffee cup.
Mr. Jones.
What else is there for 6,000?
No, this is,
The investigators.
yes.
You're getting the investigator here.
That's
Right.
theirs.
It's the whole
Yeah.
Furniture.
You getting a TV?
I don't think in that line.
I think so.
Computers.
Well, there's a TV in almost every investigator's office. I was just wondering if this.
Oh, we would have been moving.
So the answer is no, no TV.
I think it's just furniture,
I think it's
desk and
just,
chairs.
Yeah.
it's furniture and chairs.
In other offices.
I could be wrong, but I mean, it's not my thing. I wouldn't be buying them. I wouldn't be furniture, yes, I'd be part of chairs.
We got chairs and desks.
That has been kind of a moving target though. It started out at 2, went to 3, and now to 4, and now it's 6.
I'd like to know what we're
Who's doing
getting.
all that? If it's the sheriff department is doing the choosing on this, but I think Dan's question is legitimate.
But
I think the reason it comes to mind, and then I'm not sure $6,000 is a huge number to outfit 3 officers, if I'm not. But it's been such a moving target, I kind of like being quick to list sometimes.
we could do a follow-up, but it's within his, he's moving the money
It's
around.
within this budget, I mean, that's not, I'm not quibbling on the money necessarily.
Another thing, a good chair could save you in workers' comp double that.
We're not talking about chairs.
We are talking about-
I just think that for the committee's identification, it would have been good to have a list of here's what we're gonna buy.
Bob concurs with me.
We can ask the sheriff.
It comes through.
They have to be special chairs.
Not to purchase, he had it in his budget, so.
The
we
budget
never
amendment.
went to committee.
So, any more questions? All in favor, say aye, or
I
opposed?
not opposed, just like to know what we're buying.
Amend the county road, fund budget for consolidated highway improvement program, so it's CHIPS money, it's rollover from last year, so moved by Daryl, second by Scotty.
I got a question.
Okay, go ahead, John.
The towns can't move over money, so I see it, we gotta use it. Send the bill and everything, that's all different for the county.
No, it's exactly the same. So what it is they only move, so they used $1 million less than what they had available last year. They didn't get all the projects, all the money used for the projects they were doing. So you're just putting this back in the budget. The state holds it for you. It's still there. And you have up to 18 months to claim that.
Okay.
So you can roll over chips, but not the extreme weather.
Right. Chips is the only one you can
No,
roll.
I don't,
You can roll over.
You had an announcement, we file next year for that.
if you don't use what you use this year.
And they send a sheet right to your highway superintendent that every 3 months it tells you, this is what's available. This is what
I
you
know all
use.
that, we just use all ours and went all apparently.
It's very
Yeah.
possible, very possible.
And we roll ours over just because we're doing a highway bond, so. Everybody has a different way of attacking this, yeah.
I just had a quick comment that we have this rolling over and I know it's Deb's decision, maybe DPW should push it a little harder, but maybe this should go towards bridges and stuff because all of a sudden we're getting in a crisis across the county in bridges. We get a mile of road or two here.
More to follow on that one in next Public Works meeting.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I do wanna mention that Route 28, they just did like a half depth reclamation type thing. It was a 3-day cure. It's like the interstate. It's an unbelievable job and I wanna give credit where credit's due. F, amend the capital plan, project for County Route 37 pavement preservation.
I'll move that.
By Daryl, second. Jay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, resolution G is sewer district number 2 for legal fees. Motion. Moved by Tim Fisher, second. Daryl. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. H is sewer district number 2 contract for sewer capacity value study.
Motion.
Moved by Tim, second by Sam. Any discussion? Jay?
We keep nailing the fund balance, at some point, Mr. Treasurer, we have a number where that's getting drawn down to in the DPW meeting or whatever.
I've had multiple conversations with the director, he's aware.
And the first one is gonna be put back in next year, we just have to pay for legal fees this year.
So that comes out of county money.
No, sewer district fund balance.
Sewer,
On that.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is it's pulled out, and then next year it's gonna be replaced,
yes.
but that's their fund. balance.
Within their fund balance, yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Resolution I is the BSS Adult Protective Services ARPA 2 grant. Motion. Moved by Tim. Second by Darrell. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. J is awarding the proposal for the WIOA Adult Youth Services proposal. For motion. Moved by Sam, second by Darrell. Any discussion on that?
Just for clarification, this is your workforce development money that Leap administers.
Going to work for us.
Right.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Okay, leave the contract to be signed.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
carried.
Thank you.
K is increase the opioid reserve and establish contribution pot. Motion by Tim, second. Sam? Any discussion on that? Go ahead.
So again, in full disclosure, and just so that I'm sharing with you all, the resolution moves the opioid money from 2023, but it also asks you to make that move an automatic thing that happens each year. I just wanted to point that out, that that's something new. But the opioid money, 50% of it, I'm required to reserve anyway. For the past 2 years, you have reserved all of it because our number's just really not that huge. So I just wanted to be fully transparent that written in this resolution is the ability for me to continue to reserve all the funds each year at the close of the fiscal year. So I just wanted to make sure that that was discussed fully and make sure you're comfortable with that.
And the numbers will be all over the board, so doing it that way, he can keep track of the actual number that arrives.
We had a bunch of small ones already this year. We're at 64,000 this year, so it's kind of very random in the occurrences.
So then if somebody wanted to access that you're rolling over, they would still have access to
come back
it,
to the
and
committee.
come back to the committee.
So the beautiful thing about it being automatically reserved is that the only way to get it out of the reserve is to come back to you,
Gotcha.
right? So that ensures that you will always see whatever is coming out of that fund.
Is that
There in my
252,000, is that was what's in the reserve now?
The 252 was the original amount that you reserved last year, yes.
And have we withdrawn any? Yeah,
We began some programs this year.
Yeah, yeah. For EMS insurance.
Yes.
If I can get it right.
so do we get a report once a year of what went in and what came out?
That's being brought back to committee once a
Right.
year. to
Right.
Talk
What-
about it, what programs. you
So
want
it
to
just
continue.
started, so we approved it when they made the presentation. And then they'll show us what they did with it
And that's
what
in the
amount.
public safety committee?
Yes,
Well, we started it in Public Human Services. But I
We
think
did.
now that we do
You're
the
right.
recommendations, it would just come to finance.
Okay.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Resolution L to amend title by grade to establish pay rates for special patrol officers. Moved by Darrell, second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. M is to amend the title by grade, schedule and staffing pattern to sign council, and this was the interim clerk we talked about earlier.
I'll move it.
Moved by Darrell, second by Sam, so discussion. You want to add anything to this?
No, I added it all in.
You did a good job. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
No.
carried. Yep, one no. N is
I don't
structural
feel any
bridge
better
steel
about
materials.
this.
The bids were open May 16th, and someone can tell me exactly why this came differently than through
It-
DPW, right?
It did not make it for.
Right, it wasn't in
Right,
time.
it got dropped. So, yes, we'd like to bring that to finance to award to County and Country Bridge and Rails, PCDR.
So that's why it's here, correct? Is because time is of the essence. We're in there.
Yeah, I'll second it, because I talked to Deb about this yesterday.
Moved by Jay, second by Daryl. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay, O is to adopt, introductory local law B.
This is the change in the workers' comp law.
That we already.
Oh, yeah, they're right.
I'll move it.
Second.
Moved by Sam, second by Daryl. Any other discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. And P is to set the time and place for the public hearing concerning Adirondack Community College budget. And the reason that's here is because we did not have a quorum of finance at the ACC meeting. Mr. Chairman, would you like to?
Well, I was gonna address it personnel, but Sam, yeah, won't be too quickly here. We've had forum issues. You know, during my last tenure, maybe it could be it's my fault, I don't know. But we had a board meeting, we didn't have a quorum for, we had to change, we had several committee meetings. I was completely embarrassed up at ACC that, you know, Warren County had all their ducks in order, we didn't have a quorum, we couldn't take action on this. The problem with it is, that, you know, when you don't go forward with these things, then we have all the same questions all over again. However, what I think I'm gonna ask for is maybe a policy, it's not sure what the policy change or rules of the board. But, some other counties have both the chair and the vice chair able to sit to make a quorum. Maybe we need that. If we can't get supervisors there to make a quorum, maybe we need two bodies that are always there that can make it up. I'm not sure what to do.
I'm not sure it would have even worked.
It would have been darn close, but it was. And, you know, I'm not sure what to do about the quorum issues. We're having some really significant quorum issues lately, and this was a big event. It's a 45-minute presentation of all the stuff we're going to vote on, and three of us saw it.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, Chair, with this, for the ACC issue, it's not just your year, it happened during my tenure as well. That we just didn't have the members there to act on it. And I don't know, you know, we knew that Mr. Nolan was gonna be away, he was gonna be gone, he was one member for the committee, he was gonna be gone.
People have, I'm not criticizing people.
No, I
for not
understand.
being there, just. We
I
gotta do
understand.
something, so this doesn't.
And it does seem to be that committee or that actual meeting. The only good news was this one, it was held early enough that it was just pre-finance anyway, so we're only talking a couple days, it still makes it to the right proper board meeting.
Yeah, but
So-
it's miss.
But it could miss, so that's why it's,
So, I don't, just let me finish my thought before I lose it again. So is there a way that we change our rules? That we could, and Deb was aware that we weren't gonna have enough for that committee meeting, that we would have alternates that we could call and ask if they could come and participate?
I
And
think
represent the
actually,
board, Dan? How does that?
my recommendation being, with the exception of the, I don't know, I think, the committee appointments are at the prerogative of the chairman, so if he had to remove and appoint people.
I don't think.
I don't think it's removing, it's
I
looking.
don't think it's individual issues. Because we seem to have an awful lot of issues lately. Back when Brian and I first started, it was almost mandatory that we had practically every supervisor at every committee meeting, and it's getting, now that we're down to barely a quorum sometimes. I'm not sure what the issue is. If this is the new culture, we need something to make sure we have a quorum so we can conduct business. I'm just trying to figure out a way to get at least one more body that we could use. It came to my attention that other counties have both the chair and the vice chair able to make a quorum. So it just seemed like that might be a rule change. we
That's,
could do.
that's certainly one way you can do it.
So would that mean I give us the number? So I'll go back to my initial question to you, dear. Is it appropriate or legal or however you want to phrase it, that in the event that someone can't make it, we know they're not gonna make it, that we can reach out to other ones to fill that gap on an alternate basis for that one meeting?
so you're almost saying, basically what we're doing is you have the committee and you have alternates for each committee at the same time. is there a way to establish that where?
So if we know
where it
that,
would
for
be a
example,
policy?
exactly, so we know that we're not coming, I'm not gonna go to the meeting, and we're gonna be short of members to make up that quorum. Is there something that the chairman can do, maybe to call the other supervisors, see if somebody else is available to fill that committee that day?
So you're talking like an on-the-fly interim appointment for that day?
More of a policy where when you fill out the committee, these people are on it and maybe there's two alternates also. That if, that might even work. I hadn't thought of it until you just
I
mentioned
know, I
it.
Board can write its rules, however, it wants to write its rules.
So I think it'll go through government ops, but I think we would want to look at that. That might not be a bad idea.
And we can still include the chairman and the vice chairman, you
Yeah.
know, well, the vice chair would be there anyways, you could fill it if we needed it. But that would save us from getting there, maybe we could have individuals who at least had representation.
So if you know in advance, you can make sure the alternate goes there.
I know in the past, certain judicial conventions, you always do a petition with your slate of
Right.
delegates
And then
and
you
your
have
slate of
your
alternates, and if people don't show up, you move them up.
Just a thought. Chairman, I don't know.
It's gonna take some work, but.
I got Dan, he's important. Nice.
I mean, maybe we're getting too deep into this. This is so complicated, what you're trying to deal with. Wouldn't it be way simpler for you just to contact ACC and say, listen, make sure you schedule your meeting in advance of our finance meeting? And then all of a sudden, there's no problem, none whatsoever.
Well, they did do that.
Oh,
But it's
and
a
I know,
joint
and
meeting,
you just
but
said
it was
we
a
have no
joint meeting and it
problem.
didn't happen. Right,
You said we had no problem.
right, it worked out this time. But
Right.
it doesn't
But
always.
for example, like Nate was at the ACC meeting, if he had him either as an alternate or a chairman had the ability to say, I'm going to appoint you to the ACC committee for this meeting, we might have been able to fill the quorum and not have the issue. I think that's more what we're trying to handle. Because I mean, stuff comes up, God forbid, you might have a death in the family or something at the last minute that you
I've
plan on
never
going
seen
and
the
you
time
couldn't.
we have a problem making a form for finance here.
We had, we had it for a big board meeting. That's as bad as it gets. That's
And
the
how
way
many
it
years? How many years was that?
It
I
should
mean,
never
what, 10
happen.
years, 15
Well, it
years?
should never happen.
My gosh, it's been 22 years since I first came up here and it's happened once.
You're right, and it never should. We should be better than that.
And so we're gonna do all these new ground rules to deal with an issue that happened once in 20 years.
I think you didn't have a 2/3 quorum.
So I mean, I think we're overreacting is all I'm saying. I'm saying just make sure ACC holds their meeting in advance of finance and you've got the problems out. None whatsoever, no
Why
problem
is that
at
solve
all.
the problem? If people don't show up.
Well, you'll still be embarrassed, but I mean.
If people don't show up to the finance meeting.
I am now, I wish I'd called on Dave.
So ACC is probably one of the most important things in communities we go to. There's so much information given out there. That's really good. I hear people say, well, why are we gonna increase our ACC contribution? 30% of the kids there are from Washington County. And that's where our proration of our share comes from, is the number of our students that go there. But why isn't every single supervisor coming up to talk about places and find out from the college themselves what's going on? I mean, yes, it's an embarrassment, but more importantly, you're gonna be expected to vote on some very important issues in the county.
Well,
What percentage did you say?
30%. Our rate is 30% more.
And it's very complicated because it also decides the chargeback rates for other counties. It changes the tuition rate. So it's best if everybody's there to understand it, but it's hard to get your handle around it if you're not there.
70 is what you just said. I thought I read in the minutes that 43% comes from Saratoga County.
No.
That was, however they earned it, you're right.
So 43% comes from Saratoga County.
But that's a chargeback.
Right, they aren't a
Yeah,
sponsor
but that's the
county.
students, we're talking students, right?
That's why you have to go to the meeting. You have to separate all those things out. That proves it very well.
They take the number of students that are attending ACC from Warren and Washington County. 70% are coming from Warren County and 30% are coming. That's how our proration of the annual contribution is. Doesn't include Saratoga, that comes out of a different income stream, which is chargebacks.
I understand that. I'm just saying you said that the students, but 43% of the students come from Saratoga County.
Never said that.
It's not 42, I think it's 23 anyway, but it's.
Yeah, but of the students that attend Warren and Washington County residents,
Right.
70% of them Warren.
Yeah, I got it.
30% come from Washington.
Anyway, all in favor, say aye, I've set the public hearing.
Wait a minute, I don't even have a motion.
Oh, we didn't get a vote.
I'll put a motion on the table.
Thank you, Carol. Second by Sue. All in favor, say aye.
Well, how about discussion?
We,
No,
Wasn't
we were
discussion.
just discussion on quorum issues. You never discussed.
oh, you
the
don't want to
whole
have a public
budget.
hearing, okay?
I just want to discuss the budget. Now we have an increase of what, $125,000?
Somewhere in this.
Is that the largest increase we've ever had? That sounds like the largest
It
increase.
could be, it's a it's not here, sorry, my memory. It's a 5 or 10 year program to get us to our 1/3. Between Warren and Washington County, paying 1/3 of the total budget.
And the
That's the way it's
state paying the
supposed
other 2/3?
The state pays 1/3 and tuition pays.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago we voted on that, right?
Yeah, a while, it was last year. It was, so we're in the second year of a set.
Is this gonna keep increasing?
Yes.
For how many years?
Somewhere in that or somewhere.
28.
I remember she said at the meeting. I can't-
Yeah, I forgot now. Any more questions?
25,000 increase.
Is there any other questions? A motion to, or, all in favor of setting the public hearing? Aye. Opposed? Yes. Okay. On Q, amend the general fund budget for a special DWI funding. Need a motion. Moved by Mr. Fisher, second by Sue. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. And resolution R is a sewer district deal with Irving, and I will let Mr. Gorman.
Yeah,
our
so
attorney-
this recently came up, that's why I brought this committee, not Public Works. If you recall, back in 2023 into 2024, Irving undertook a project at their facility that was no cost to the district. The construction was no cost, and our legal engineering review is covered by Irving. To that point, the line that was going through their property was owned and maintained by the district. So they rerouted the line around where their new building is going. And we have to take ownership of the new line, so. I don't know what this resolution is this for the TP 584?
Yes.
So that's the first form towards the overall dedication of the sewer line coming back to the district, which we're legally responsible to do because we have to own and maintain the sewer line, which we couldn't do if it was through private property.
I'll move it.
Second by Tim and Sue. Is there more discussion?
I'm curious, how do you determine, what we can put it next to you? Do you have that? I didn't.
So an EDU, that's more for the billing, however your billing can be set up, equivalent to dwelling unit. This has nothing to do with that. This is just updating the ownership of a length of sewer line. Well, yeah, I mean, they pay us like any other user does for their actual sewer usage. But they're not gonna have to pay us for this line. It's just they paid us for our inspection and our legal review documents that go along with it.
So just so you know that this authorizes the chairman to execute the contract. So it's just actually a real estate.
Yeah, so next month I'll probably be back with additional documents to get the full dedication. This is just the first step towards it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Matt Jones? Yeah. Yeah.
Quick, just for the last week, we were,
made aware of a swims program grant through the Department of State. It's through the local government services division. Basically, it's meant for advertising, for lifeguard position recruitment, retention, and salary of lifeguards. Washington County is eligible for up to $25,000 toward this stuff. Right now, I'm just looking for permission to apply for the grant. It has to be released by July, so we missed our government ops. If I waited to this government ops, it'd only give me, a week to start working on it with Sue, and Sue Maury is gonna help with this down Youth Bureau.
And this would be for next year.
This would be, that's right, so the contract term is April 1st, 24. It's a reimbursable grant, so basically you spend it and then they reimburse, so it could be for this year, but my proposal would be for next year. And for right now, what we've talked about, and we've talked about it in the past, is the lifeguard grade levels and salaries. That's probably what we'd be looking, that's basically the way the grants here, we sat through the webinar. Time after time, they really wanted it for the lifeguard salaries and the park manager salaries, so you'll hear more on that, but this just gets me started on applying for the grant, and then at government ops, we'll decide how, and the actual numbers of what we can do for it, but as of right now, it's a 25,000.
And you wouldn't know until you applied if you got the whole 25. So
That's right.
It would
So we're
change
gonna
everything.
apply, right, we're gonna maximize the 25, which would be very easy done.
Okay, so if we apply for the grant, we get the grant, we'd be looking at doing increases to what they're being paid. All right, so this is a 1-year grant?
Yes.
Okay, so that's number one. So that means that we'd be looking at funding probably at that same level, or that's what
Or
we get
more
them to
the
come
next-
back again.
yes,
They'd be
yes.
looking to go back again the next year.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, how does the increase, how is that going to affect other positions that we already have within the county that we can?
Matt and I had further discussion this morning about that, because that's what I look at, is the overall picture and how it relates to all the other employees and departments.
Gotcha.
We discussed it this morning, and with a request for a 1 or possibly a 2 grade increase, that would still work on the title by grade. He also has a park manager and that's a salary position that he'd be looking to increase. But like you said, it is a one-time amount of money, so we'd have to budget for further years.
And this really came about, if you remember, when the state upped their number for lifeguards because they couldn't get any.
Right.
But then that puts pressure on all our local ones too. And so one's feeding off the other. It's kind of like inflation here. So
They did it to us, and now they're giving us a little bit of,
they're trying to help us out to get there, but it will convolute everything else across.
there was a chance, they didn't rule it out that it wasn't gonna be ongoing fund either, so it could be, but government, they might do it this year and then put it towards something else next year. And if you do research for the towns that have parks, there is 2 grants out there with the same name through New York State in different departments. There is another SWIMS grant, and that Laura knows about now that we're talking about, they probably hear about for next year, and that's for capital projects and stuff like that, but they're both called SWIMS. So if you start looking into it and you say, well, Matt said this was for a lifeguard, you may be looking at the wrong one. So we were both looking at each other, me and Laura were like, no, that's not what we heard, that's not what I heard, and then we started looking at it, and it's the same name, 2 different departments.
I know this is just I don't mean to take over the conversation.
Sure.
So where I foresee the problem coming in, from a selfish standpoint for 40 and who has 3 lifeguards.
Yep.
Is that if we've only got a small pool of lifeguards, it's gonna be a on-demand basis, if you will. So if we go up an hour here at the county.
Yeah.
On the lifeguards.
Right, it's gonna affect
It's gonna force, we can recruit as well.
Yeah.
Or if we can pay for it. So it spirals on down. I know we got 40 in and we got Greenwich, and I don't know if there's any other.
Yeah.
Any other, was it Putnam? So it has
Right.
But the way the state was doing it, they were getting them all for Lake George, Saratoga, right, so they were worried about state areas, and that was taking our people away too. And did you want to add about the program change as far as teaching the lifeguards in July and?
Yeah, so
It's all
I mean,
incorporated.
we,
Sue has three employees that are able to train lifeguards now, so actually able to give the certification. We're working for retention purposes of lifeguards and recruitment. The biggest thing is we've always done our courses in February school breaks, but people go on vacation, so we're missing out. Not to mention students that are eligible for this, lots of times aren't thinking that far ahead. We get a lot of calls in the middle of summer about a lifeguard job and they're just months behind. You know, you can try to prep them for next year, but it doesn't always work out. So we are trying to work on a way to figure out how we could do a lifeguard course in the middle of the summer. Well, it's fresh in their minds, they're off from school, and maybe get some more recruitment, you know, for local lifeguards. And how to keep it in the county, so we're not training with our youth bureau, we're not training Monroe, you know, Monroe Park or Monroe Recreation Area or other state parks.
And the rate's
Lifeguards.
reasonable too, right?
Yeah.
With the way we do it ourselves instead of through.
That's right. So,
Yeah, and I don't know if you can answer this, Pat. What are we paying on lifeguards now?
I can tell you, so the base rate for a lifeguard is $17.05.
Now, by base, what does that mean?
That's your first year lifeguard. If you're fully certified, you went and paid for your training or got training through us, however you got it. You start at $17.05. After the first year, you get, you know, $17.29. You do get the steps every year, just like every other employee.
And how, do you have many lifeguards that have been there for years?
No, they tend to cycle in about the time they're 15, 16 and cycle out before they're about 19, 20, college.
So
you know.
4 to 5 years is the most you get.
Yeah, so then.
So what's the top pay, like 18?
18.07, and if you're a senior lifeguard, which comes with more responsibilities, you're one grade higher, so you would start at 18.31, and you know, you'd end up 19.35, and you were there for the full.
Or as a lifeguard, 19.35 now.
Yep.
With this grant of 25,000, you said you've done a little research. What would it increase the starting pay?
Increase, if we were to do and agree on, so this would come at budget time.
Oh, yeah, I understand that, but I'm just saying if.
It would be a 2 grade, if we were to do a 2 grade, you would start at 1963 and end up at 2067. So you're talking about, if you did 2 grades, let's just say slightly over $2 an hour per state. Great.
The way I'm seeing it, if we apply for this grant, it's great, but we've automatically locked in. from
Whatever that grant
next
number
year
is.
on
Yeah.
our own.
Whatever that
So
grant number
At
is.
least 20, if we get 25,000 in a grant, we've increased our budget by 25,000 plus 2%. So the bottom line is, really, is the salary an issue with recruiting?
So it is starting to become I'm not saying it's 100% the issue, right? Recruiting to our areas, we're in a smaller area, less population, you know, so you do have lifeguards that want to work more local to their homes than drive. So there is that, you know, same thing in Hebron, but I can tell you that there is talk, and they do know, right? Because their friends are now working up at $1 Million Beach and they're making $3, $4 an hour more.
Because we're all paying
And,
15 and the state.
you know,
about
the state
20
went
now.
in and they kind of lowered, you know, they did a whole bunch of training only for if you work for them. So you could go get free trained as a lifeguard. Only if you had already signed a contract to work for them.
Right,
So
so now we have 3 that can train here.
We got 3 that can train here. The biggest problem that we're working through with Sue is the youth bureau's busiest time of year for all their other programs is the summertime, right? And it's now, so they are doing a course. We're gonna try to get 4 more certified for, and that's kind of for us. Next week.
For the park.
For our parks. If everything goes well, I mean, the kids still have to pass it and it's become quite a, not that it wasn't easy before, but it's very strict now. Like even, you know, I'm talking to Gretchen and stuff like this I have with Sam's, you know, and it's become quite more rigorous. It's full week of training, you know, and which is good, right? I mean, the safety.
I can understand the safety part of it and how important that is. But I'd also like to hear from the towns, is this going to impact in their own community because of their,
It already
is
did
that
us,
going
but
to?
We already had to go there in order to get people.
Well, no, I mean, is that something you feel comfortable
Well,
with?
this may answer, yeah, it's a 2-part question and I'll show up after this. So my question is, do Do we currently have enough lifeguards at the county level?
No,
No. Where are we short?
Lauderdale.
Lauderdale, the biggest.
And as it looks right now, which I will know more, I have a better grasp in the Whitehall area right now than we did 5 years ago. It was in reverse. I'll probably be using Whitehall kids and trying to transport them down to run the park in Lauderdale, because right now, what you've got is those family levels that were all in it. Those kids are college age kids and they go back early. So I just got an email from my park manager and he's like, they gave me their dates. And we are in jeopardy of not being able to run the park or open a park, the beach, without some sort of help, which we hopefully have help on the way, They might not pass their course. We don't know, we don't know until they pass their lifeguarding course that they can, and they're also gonna be brand new. So hopefully we're gonna have to pull them in the real life situation of lifeguarding.
So you have some experience.
There's that additional cost to truck them down there too, right?
Yeah.
Man, once they're certified, you only have to go through that once.
No, you have to keep it up.
Every year.
And every year you have to do your CPR, and every 2 years you have to recertify for the life.
And we don't charge them for it for the training, do we?
If they can get to our set times. So if you're,
So some of
our
the
set time
money,
is in February, and we have a limit of 16 kids per class. So if you don't get signed up and there's not really a priority list, we're not necessarily prioritizing Washington County, or we're working at Sand or our park. It's open to whoever signs up. So the first 16 that sign up and register are the first 16 to get trained. And if you're gone on family vacation, which lots of times 15, 16-year-olds aren't left home, they're your lifeguards, right? They don't get left home to go to training, they're gone. So like this year, we have a kid going up to Burlington to try to get trained because he wasn't able to make that's gonna cost him $500.
Now, this is the second part of my question, but I guess we need to stay with this one time. So if you're going to implement that this year, I know our town budgets are already set within.
It wouldn't be this year.
Endorsement.
It'll be for next year.
It'll be for next year.
Next year, nothing changed this year. This is pretty much, I'm asking permission to apply for the grant. You'll hear it again at government ops, and then it'll be a budget time discussion
Okay.
of what we want to do.
I apologize. I thought it was short fuse you were trying to use it this year.
No,
And that was my concern.
it would kind of cut us short, right? Like it
Gotcha.
would
Yep.
be good for us to try to use it this year.
And the other thing is, what if we get 15 and not the 20, it changes the numbers to it.
Right.
So you kind of gotta look at either out.
That's fine.
And also bear in mind, when we had this conversation about incentivizing and, New York State's year over year is gonna raise the minimum wage up to.
Yeah.
So that's going up to $50.
I think I've already heard it more than once, and I'm not from the lifeguard, but like, you can go make more money at McDonald's down the road than you can, and you have responsibility of, a lifeguard. Which they do have a lot. And I would challenge anybody that thinks that it's a great summer gig to go on a busy weekend day and sit there and watch these kids in action in a stand.
You
Like,
get yelled at by an adult.
well, they have to be the one that's big enough, they have to be in charge, like,
Yes.
and when you have, you have situations, they're not just sitting there working on their tan all summer.
Yeah, they deal with a lot of
They
difficult
do.
people.
I'll move that you apply for the grant.
Second,
A second.
Sam, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, carried. One last thing, Sue Maury did send us an email that you can sign your youth stuff today at her office, so she doesn't have to mail it out, so. Yeah, that's the only other that's left. Okay, we need a motion to go into executive session, and Dan's gonna tell us why, even if he doesn't know.
I do, I just want to make sure I stay on the record.
Thanks,
Collective
everyone.
negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the civil service law.
Okay.
What kind of
Motion to executive
negotiation?
session.
Did you say what kind?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
You weren't loud enough, must be. Second by Sam.
Collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the civil service law.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Now we have to wait for everything.